Hey, welcome to Chapter 15. I would like to say thank you for attending this class. If you've made it this far, this is the end. Um, I hope you've enjoyed it so far. I hope you've learned a lot. I would like to hope that if you didn't, you might be able to use some of these lessons as a way to cure insomnia if you ever have that. Um, well, let's go ahead and kick this off and talk about some of the cool stuff that remains. We're going to talk about how to evaluate regulations and emerging technologies that are related to security, such as the key concepts are emerging trends in network security, firewalls, and VPNs, tools for VPN, uh, network security and firewalls, uh, security techniques for wireless and mobile connectivity, and finally, we're going to touch on regulation and compliance. So, what holds for the future of network security, firewalls, and VPNs? Well, factors that include the planning of future products are the historical progression of threats. As always, as security companies, they are always chasing the latest attack vector. So we have a lot of different things coming through. Nowadays, we're seeing more specialization evolving uh, for products based on specific industries. So you're seeing a lot more firewalls for the energy and manufacturing industries, for financial industries, and others, state, federal government agencies. We're seeing a lot of different things coming out. You're seeing a lot of experts and futurists who are trying to predict the future of firewalls. The vendors are going to try and evaluate what all these are coming down and how to plan these and make this more profitable for their future. And then they all have to determine the role of cybersecurity in national security. And as we have seen in the past couple of years, we've had Department of Homeland Security, CISA, uh, expansion of NIST, and their standards coming out for that, for a lot of things to be followed. New cyber laws coming out by different states. We're seeing a lot of different things coming through the line for that aspect of how cybersecurity is going to play out in national security. Um, so let's talk about what do I think is going to happen in the future. Well, I think there's going to be a lot more integration of security that's going to utilize artificial intelligence. If you are looking to grow and go in the future and be, the next mover and shaker in this industry, artificial intelligence integrating with security to address threats instantaneously and to counteract AI issues that are occurring with other uh, adversarial AIs that are trying to be used to penetrate your networks. With that said, we're going to move slowly into the world of quantum computing. Quantum computing uh, leaves behind the relative plane of everything being a 1 or 0. We're getting rid of the binary basis. These are going to go into more of an aspect where we're going to see quantum states of um, the kind of the positioning of an atom and a matrix, so to speak. Uh, this quantum state of the orientation of certain atoms or molecules would allow for a multiple answers to be multiple theories to be thought or multiple solutions to be calculated at quicker times, at exponentially far more advanced than, any computer today could operate. And they could create some complex solutions for us based on how we program them. And creating, you know, quantum encryption methodologies is probably our next step in security. And then also having quantum be able to identify, you know, intrusions and other potential intrusion vectors that were not even conceivable, and being able to address those for us. So that's what I kind of think of what's going on in the future of security and the next couple of, next decade or so, where we're going to see that start to come into more to play. So today we have to look at what threats that are we're currently addressing. Organized crime, organized gangs, from cartels to uh, cyber gangs from the Eastern Europe sphere for Asia to nation states. These are a lot of different things where we come from, and we have to address those. We have to identify, and we see the targeted attacks against specific industries and companies. News of late, insurance and healthcare companies seem to be getting targeted a lot because they have never, especially healthcare companies, have never invested heavily in cybersecurity. They've always had to do the bare minimum to meet regulatory requirements, usually, and they have never taken a strong role in advancing it until the recent couple of years. But there's a lot of smaller healthcare companies out there that don't have those resources that are definitely getting pressure and attacked. We're seeing more and more viruses out there and malware that are going after credit card numbers, bank information, social security for the pure purpose of exfiltrating that data in an automated fashion so that identity theft could occur and they could just kind of steal the money. We're seeing a lot more rootkits out there lately, where devices are coming with rootkits, or software is coming with rootkits on them. That's there, and then right now we're seeing a lot of issues where uh, there's bot armies out there where they have a lot of zombies that they can turn into a bot army at a moment's notice and just kind of point it at a target and have a denial of service attack, and they go after and extort you to try and get you to pay up for them to turn the switch off. And again, ransomware. That's been hitting the news a lot, where a lot of companies are getting hit by ransomware. And unfortunately, we're still seeing a lot of that to this day. What does the future hold? Well, we're hoping to build more resilient networks that mitigate the risk of traffic-based attacks. This is done by zero trust architecture, where you can create more compartmentalization out there and more controls on what traverses different areas in your network. We're also trying to get more secure operating systems and applications. They're writing them with a lot of times with security in mind. That's meant to resist malware for that case. They are written so they have compartmentalized areas of memory locations and memory spaces. Uh, they are controlled so they only accept input from other known processes within the application sphere. So those are some things that they're learning to control a lot better these days. IPS, intrusion prevention systems, they are now hopefully, especially with the use of something like AI, they can adjust and mitigate an attack for you instantly. Quick analysis, and they can determine, hey, this is not normal, and we're going to go ahead and shut that off until somebody else tells us to allow it. That way it looks better. And then cloud triage. Can isolate a threat before infrastructure can. So this is where you are extending your perimeter into the cloud. And like this is where you have companies like Akamai and Cloudflare out there who are providing content delivery networks. On top of that, they do some security analysis of what's going on the internet and what attacks are occurring. And if they see one of their clients get attacked, they kind of uh, harden the system for attacks against all the other clients. And then they share it out to the other companies so they can help harden their systems against attacks. So it's a collaboration effort out there to help remedy that. So firewall capabilities, uh, ever since the first firewall, which was a source, destination, and port, came in, and they started adding NAT and other things. Uh, Now you see them with geolocation tagging, where they can tag it, they can integrate proxy services, they can do specific application protocols with deep packet inspection. And there's more and more features coming out every day. Sandboxing of UDP information to reassemble it to prevent UDP attacks are coming through. A lot of great innovations are out there with these firewall technologies and capabilities they're building out in the future. And who knows what else they're going to add in the future. I'm sure they're going to probably add a lot more sophisticated DLP and information stuff. Encryption is constantly evolving. Uh, as you know, they're saying, oh, well, this will take. Remember these things you type in a password and tell you how many years it'll take to crack a password. Now, if you enter that password again today, what used to be 174,000 years is now like 28 minutes. Something like that. You're seeing a lot of things get out there with more and more computing that's getting faster and more capable. Uh, and especially now with cloud computing where it can be distributed, you're seeing a lot more memory allocation space going through there. So calculations at the where they can play with different nonces and stuff like that help create these tables, which can help break a lot of the different crypto systems. So they have to come up more and more advanced. Um, they say once quantum computing becomes more available, all of our current uh, crypto systems will be breakable within minutes or even less. So new algorithms will end up having to be created out there using quantum techniques. So a quantum encryption algorithm might take another quantum computer decades to break, hopefully, with their availability to do a lot more quantum computing and all that. So hopefully that'll be something we'll see in the future. Authentication. Now that is the hot topic of today. The trend is kind of moving away from and token passwords and tokens. Um, or it's moving away from passwords. It's moving toward tokens like OAuth tokens or SAML tokens. The use of smart cards, the use of biometric authentication, and other aspects out there. Uh, Identity and account management, we're seeing it become more and more automated, where we can see accounts get provisioned and deprovisioned with a single click of a button, and they would reach out throughout your enterprise and remove permissions of that user from multiple systems. Uh, we have full lifecycle account management associated with auditing capabilities that are coming through. For instance, I just got notified on my phone my password is going to be expiring soon. And so I'm going to have to go ahead and start getting ready to change my password again. So And tomorrow when I log into work, I'm going to get notified that my password needs to be changed on my workstation. And sometimes, I can dismiss this, but if I let it go and it's like 2 weeks till expiration, it will leave a pop-up on my screen full time for like the last 5 days until I change my password, until my password expires. So you have all these capabilities that are now built into IAM systems to make sure that everything is followed and automated. Another aspect you're going to see in the future are more sophisticated metrics. Um, for those of you who would like to go and get a business degree or follow up this education with a Master of Business Administration, you're going to find out that metrics are increasingly important because they're a quantification of the contributions to the organization are. And they can be employee contributions, these can be system contributions, and all that. So, one of the things that has been severely lacking in security is how do you measure security? And a lot of things, well, we can measure it in risk. Well, okay, that's a subjective quantification. How do you do objective? Uh, you know, how do you do an objective quantification? For those of you who are unsure of those terms, subjective means I'm going to assign a value to something, and then we're going to calculate it based on a formula. Objective means I don't generate the number. The number is generated uh, from an actual system count that can be validated and verified. So if you show like the number of packets or number of sessions dropped or that are counted on your computer or on your firewall, that is an objective metric. If you say, oh, this risk is a 3 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10, you know, that's more of a subjective versus the objective. So we're going to see a lot more of that occurring through the thing. And then they're going to use that as justification for creating expenditures to support security. So you're going to see a lot of people, managers, trying to create metrics to support and show what their value is uh, for that. So we're also going to see application of data analytics principles. So you're going to see more and more statistical observations occurring to understand what's happening on a network. They're going to look for those deviations and anomalies that are occurring to see if those can be identified as a potential incident of a security breach or of something that is inexplainable anomaly, like a report that gets run once a quarter or something like that. So these are things that you want to check on to see how these analytics can occur. Um, they're also going to look at stuff like bandwidth usage and system anomalies, things like that. Um, Also, ITIL out of England, the Information Technology Infrastructure Library Organization. Uh, these are a set of concepts to help you formulate security management practices or any type of information technology management practices. ITIL developed a kind of out of the International Telecommunications Union, where a lot of things were occurring for stuff based on telephones and other things where they said, here's a checklist. Again, we're going back to that checklist thing on how to do things, and we have to have procedures and policies in place and to know how everything's done so it's repeatable. And these are your best practices, and they share them with each other. Future trends in cloud mobility. Yeah, securing the cloud. That's a constant challenge, and Everyone is developing for the cloud so quickly. It's almost like the early days of IT development, and it seems a lot of times they're forgetting about what security is needed out there. Uh, as I am looking more and more into the cloud stuff and my daily job evaluating stuff that my company is using, we're finding more and more things that are overlooked that are not good security practices. Uh, those things are out there, and we just need to keep making sure that that shift left occurs where they build security into the products and into the architectures of the cloud. A lot of times we're seeing them out there, and they create something like, oh yeah, we'll throw a firewall in front of it. Well, that's a little too late, after throwing the firewall after, the fact it's been built. Securing your mobile devices. Um, how many of you actually have anti-malware running on your Android or iPhone or whatever kind of phone you have running? Those things are constantly connected to the internet, and most people don't give it a second thought. If you kind of go out there and find out who the shadow brokers are, they are a group that goes out there and they are exploiting mobile phones and taking financial information off of them. They're also using them they're selling tools to governments to help turn on microphones remotely to spy on people. They're doing a lot of things like where they've spied on journalists or political opponents and stuff like that. Next, securing the IoT, Internet of Things. You've heard of all these smart devices coming in and out. There was a casino heist recently, or casino hack that recently occurred, and this occurred through the casino's aquarium feeding system. So the aquariums uh, were connected, and the hackers connected into the uh, mechanism wirelessly that allows it to feed the fish automatically. And then they went through that and they got in the rest of the network and spread malware through it. So the IoT was the weakest link in their operation. So those are some things out there you need to kind of watch out for. We have to learn how to secure those better. Mobile IPs, that's kind of goes along with the idea of using your cellular technology is always on. We need to learn how to make, are we creating firewalls for our phones or applications, or how do we protect our mobile IPs from randomly being DDoSed or something? A lot of times outages occur, and the first thing everybody assumes is it's a cyber attack on the phone carrier or the telecommunications carrier. Future trends in mobility and cloud are also, BYOD, bring your own device. Horrible idea. Horrible, horrible, horrible. If a company is serious about security, they need to provide their own dedicated business use only device. If there needs to be security for your bring your own device, and there's no compromise, and the company can't afford it, and says, yeah, you can bring your own device to separate business data, they should provide a suite of applications that allow that data to be segmented away from personal data, applications that only where the data will be allowed to be viewed on, that can be remotely wiped by the company. So that's the only exceptions to BYOD that I can think would be close to positively being acceptable. Oh, and tools for network security firewalls and VPNs. All right, so we have to deal with commercial off-the-shelf software. A lot of times you're seeing like devices that where they're combining hardware and software onto an appliance. That's really popular. You're seeing like things like Google search engines being brought into corporations where they have their own internet being powered by a Google search engine or something like that. We're seeing a lot of different things like that occurring, like for what used to be off the cuff software like PF Sense, your open source tool. There's companies putting that on appliances now, and that used to be just kind of a virtual software solution. Now you can bolt it on. You can buy it as a built-in appliance. So that's there for that. Um, One good thing about it is you can use these companies for support and call them up if there's an issue and they have to provide, or they don't, they should provide the support you need for that. There also is a lot of commercialization of open source software, like Splunk used to be open source, and now I think it's owned by Cisco, and there's a lot of others out there. We've seen a lot of security tools that were community created that are now being, you know, converted into commercial use only. All right, so we have open source applications and tools out there. There's a lot of innovation in the open source community. A lot of it in the pen testing side. A lot more of it's getting put out there for that. So working with open source tools is kind of a great way for you folks out there to build up your security skill set. And a lot of times these are the same hackers that, or the same tools that hackers use. So it provides the ability to understand the hackers and how they get into your system. So that's out there for that. Oh, the vanishing network perimeter. Yeah, that's good. So I talked about that. As more and more after the pandemic happened, we're seeing more and more remote work. We're seeing more people moving into the field. We're seeing more of on-premise applications being migrated to the cloud. So it's kind of wondering where the office space is. Here you can work anywhere, and your work can be anywhere. So uh, you can do your work either at home, hotel, coffee shop, anywhere that you can get Wi-Fi or mobile computing. Um, Systems are improving, so you have SSDs that are into the terabytes now, and I'm expecting them to get higher and higher after that. Uh, we see that business interconnecting with customers, vendors, suppliers. We're seeing all these networking tools where they're having private extranets or VPNs to and from vendors that provide solutions and partners that provide these solutions are being great. We're seeing online commerce still exponentially getting bigger. I know everyone thinks Amazon, but there's other things out there too around the world where there's a lot of online commerce and banking and occurring like that. I think there's some banks that are happening on some of the virtual games. Some of the banks have opened up uh, virtual presence and in some of these things. I think I saw somewhere it said that I think it was Chase Bank opened up a virtual branch and VR, virtual reality. And I think in some of the games, like if you need to make a purchase, you can go into a virtual branch out there and actually access real world funds for your virtual world environment. So you're seeing a lot of these things come through in the vanishing network perimeter. Um, One of the things, all of these things kind of are hole punches through your network perimeter that provide access to these internet clients and things from your internal network. So your hardened fortress, you're having to have a lot more holes go through it to allow cloud, to allow vendor VPNs to come in and out. So there's a lot more attack vectors out there where uh, malware or attackers could traverse through any of those holes out there, and they can increase the vulnerabilities to your network whenever time you punch a hole in there. So uh, you're going to benefit from like the sunlight, as it says here, for having a skylight in your roof, but you're going to want to make sure it doesn't leak when it rains. I think that's kind of appropriate uh, analogy for this. The impact of ubiquitous wireless and mobile connectivity. Wireless is deployed as a local LAN technology. Uh, it can be used in public and home networks for wireless. You see mobile everywhere. I mean, most of your ISP, your home modems, or everywhere else, you're going to find free Wi-Fi out there. Um, so the best real defense out there is having any of these risks is combination of policy. You should have host-based protections on those systems that are utilizing this technologies, because I would consider any wireless network as potentially compromised and low trust network out there. So you need to provide these policies on where they should connect to Wi-Fi or anything like that. Um, avoid anything that does not look right. User education is really important here. Just don't connect to any free internet access, like say at the airport, without knowing that it's like validated by the airport itself. You know, um, there's people that go around with portable hotspots out there that impersonate legitimate hotspots out there that get you to connect, and they allow you to relay through there, but as you're relaying through them, they're capturing all your information. This is why it's important to use VPNs and strong encryption of all of your connectivity to your network. So even if you are using a malicious hotspot, the information is encrypted and they should not be able to crack it. So hopefully that is good for that. The potential use of security technology. Our good friends, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Well, confidentiality, strong encryption, strong authentication, strong access controls. So we have confidentiality through that aspect. We also have the bottom where it says governance, risk, and compliance, GRC. This is where it takes the smart sages of your organization to come up with reasonable policies that are actually going to be utilized to protect the enterprise. Okay, so we're going to try and protect everything and create good sound policies. I work with a number of folks from different orgs, and we meet once a week to a couple of different policies. Or we meet a couple of times a week, one per policy once a week, or sometimes twice a week, to continually evaluate policies and think of how we can make them better. So these are some things that are part of governance, risk, and compliance that we use to help keep shaping our security for our companies. All right, so now we're getting into the regulations. Humble brag here, I did go to law school and get a degree in cybersecurity law, so this is kind of the fun part for me. So some of the ones that are really influential in, how do you say it, strong arming companies into actually implementing cybersecurity and security are some of these right here. The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, otherwise known as HIPAA, requires that information be safeguarded of individuals that are being utilized. There's a lot of other provisions out there that, most likely is like, oh, you can't disclose my health data unless I give you permission to disclose my health data. So, those provisions. But the biggest provision is there can be big fines if healthcare companies or insurance companies do not safeguard patient data. So this is a very strong thing, and I encourage you to kind of read the couple of paragraph provisions out there of that act and how the Department of Health and Human Services has created cybersecurity regulations for that industry. Next, we have the High Tech Act, which is kind of saying, these is kind of more of the anti-piracy stuff out there, where, hey, you modified your Xbox, you modified something else, um, without, permission or total ownership of something. This is where you can get caught up in that act right there. If you're in finance, if you work for a banking industry, the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, governs how the Security and Exchange Commission can implement regulatory controls over cybersecurity and how data of investors or any customer of a financial institution is maintained. Next, we have the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. This governs anything also can be controlled by the Security and Exchange Commission for any publicly traded company. So anything that's listed either on the NYSE, American Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, or any other listed exchange out there, uh, their financial statements need to be maintained in a secure fashion. So that can be controlled by that. If you're in education, FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, this protects you as students out there from having information about you disclosed. And there's a lot of different compliance issues that any professor or employee of a financial or of a educational institution, they have to go through annual training for all of this uh, to make sure that you know nothing like this gets violated. Like uh, there is no one able to discuss you know your grades or your mental condition or anything out there outside of the scope of your safety. Uh, your grades can't be disclosed to anyone but you or who you delegate as such. So if your parents are not paying for your education, then you don't have to tell them what kind of grades that you're getting. Um, we have the PCI DSS, or the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. This is not a governmental agency. This is a coalition of payment card companies, usually a lot of banks, but Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, and others dictate how uh, payment transactions need to be secured along multiple venues and avenues of data transformation across networks or data transferring across networks, and how data is stored and how long credit card information should be stored and kept. So I encourage you to read this. This has a lot of security guidance on it. It talks about how encryption should be utilized for data in motion, data at rest, how uh, firewalls should be used, how authentication mechanisms should be implemented. It's about a 44-page read. If you go to their site and look it up, it's a good read. And finally, we have a European regulation here from the EU, European Union, the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. Uh, if you ever go to a website and you see that little pop-up at the bottom or somewhere on there that says you have to accept all cookies and it has some legalese and a link to do that, that's because of this GDPR. This allows citizens of Europe anywhere in the world are protected by this regulation. Uh, anyone who's a resident of Europe, let's say, um, anyone visiting Europe, you know, this doesn't apply to just European countries. They can go after any company in the world and they can implement sanctions on those companies. So if any of those companies are doing any kind of business with Europe and they're violating GDPR, uh, they can implement fines and they can actually block those companies from doing business within Europe. So a lot of companies decided it's just better to comply with them than try and fight them over sovereignty rules. So as we move forward, we're seeing a lot of specialized firewalls being developed. Some of these are your hybrid firewalls that do multiple things. Like they'll do, firewall VPN. Maybe they'll have application layer stuff in there, like for proxying. You're gonna see like data protection firewalls out there. This is like your Imperva firewall, which is meant to sit in front of your databases and catch any kind of SQL injection attacks. And they interpret everything that's going through there to make sure it's all on the up and up. You have application firewalls, and a lot of times these are called WAFs, Web Application Firewall, which they're used to publish applications to the internet. They usually are mostly on port 443, seldomly on they're on 80. The only time 80s open up is to give a redirection to 443 for encryption out there. And Perv also does the database protection. I mentioned that under data protection. Other things for data protection are digital loss prevention firewalls. These are things which, check the data classification before data can be exfiltrated to make sure that data that should not be leaving the network does not leave the network. Next come the ubiquitous firewalls, and this just means firewalls that protect you anywhere that you go. So these are usually controlled by some kind of VPN on your computer or something, or some kind of redirection where it sends everything to a firewall that's either on premise or to a cloud via some policy that's pushed on you. So all traffic has to go through this ubiquitous firewall, whether you're on site or out in the field. And these kind of allow that traffic to go through there. You'll see a lot of this occurring like in Zscaler software, Zscaler Cloud, and there's a number of other ones, but Zscaler is a big popular one in there. Ubiquity is another one. And now we're seeing a lot of cloud-based and cloud-deployed firewalls for your cloud presence. You'll see Palo Alto, Sonic Wall. You'll see Cisco firewalls even out there on the cloud. Checkpoint firewalls. You'll see a lot of these out there being implemented, along with the basic firewalls from your AWS firewall and your Azure Cloud firewalls, which are all good firewalls out there that can be used and implemented to protect your cloud presence. So some of the emerging technologies that are emerging, data leak prevention. These are more advanced DLP solutions, data loss prevention solutions, and they help, based on your data classification. You're seeing more and more get in depth. Maybe there's a document that's classified as public, purposefully misclassified. It'll go out there and it'll start looking at the data itself and see if it kind of can grab like, something that shouldn't be there, like a social security number or a bank number or some PII where they can stop that. We're seeing a lot of advances in biometrics, which are something based on who you are and what you're made of. These can be retinal scans on your phones or facial recognition or a lot of things like that that are going to be implemented. Fingerprint readers on a lot of different devices, things like that. Um, Voice technology that can differentiate your actual voice from, say, a recorded version of your voice or a deepfake version of your voice. So these are some things that really kind of need to be done out there. Virtualization security, we're seeing a lot more virtualization as stuff gets moved into the cloud and through as more and more products, even on site, are being virtualized out there. IPv6, we're seeing a lot more development where a lot of security excluded IPv6, and now it's getting more and more acceptable to have IP6 interfaces and such that are being monitored and connected and validated through those things. And then we have VPN firewalls and other things are getting virtualized. So we're seeing a lot more things again get virtualized and put in the cloud or put on uh, virtual platforms inside the network, whether you're doing a on-site cloud, hybrid cloud, or something like that. You have VMware or Hyper-V or something running in your internal networks. We're seeing a lot of ability to virtualize a lot of our security devices that way. So that leads us to the end of everything. We've talked about the emerging trends in network security firewalls and VPNs. We've talked about some of the new tools for network security, firewalls, and VPNs for the future, security techniques for, monitoring wireless and mobile connectivity, and we've touched on regulation and compliance. Stay tuned for the next slide. If you send an email to me, I will send you, let me know you kind of made it through the lecture, I'll send you a final exam review. If I send it to you, a lot of times it ends up in your junk mail folder, so make sure you check that out. Again, it was a pleasure teaching this course to you, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope all of you learned from it. Thank you, and have a great rest of your semester, and best of luck in your careers. Feel free to reach out to me if you need anything, or you have questions, or I don't just hold this for this course here. You can always contact me and see where you can get a hold of me at. Thank you again for allowing me to be your instructor.